All right, thank you all for coming. It's another Tuesday City Council press conference. We're trying to bring out to the public some of the things that City Council is moving forward with. And I'm going to start today to talk about our property tax refund that we annually give our blessing to for seniors and disabled. It was brought about a few years ago. Myself and Councilor Starr thought it was appropriate to do some tax relief for those people that really need it with property tax. So just a few of the things I want to bring out. It's based on the criteria that the state has for their property tax freeze. So when it comes into us, we'll send that money back. You have to be 65 years or older and be disabled as defined by the Social Security Act and eligible for the state property tax refund. So that's where the criteria for the value of your home and your income reside. We just tagged right on the state. So this last year, a single household income must be less than $40,000 for $290, and the multiple member household income must be less than $51,801, and the home's full and true market value must be below $345,340. And one of the things, the state's program has to be constantly updated, so those figures might be updated based on what happens in the legislature. So one of the things, it's pretty much an automatic, but you have to apply for the state's refund before the city will act. And we get that information from the county, which has been a great partner to work on with this. So as a council, we'll vote on that renewal again to make sure that happens for our seniors and our disabled. It's the way that we make sure that the people that really deserve the property tax break can get the property tax break. Because not everybody, certainly I can pay for my property taxes, most people can make it, but those people that are hit the hardest by those things. So with that, I'll have Councilor Rich McCarris come up and talk.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Councilor. Good morning. Thanks for coming today. A couple of comments I wanted to make regarding work of the City Council. Today, we're going to be receiving an important update from Director Mark Cotter this afternoon at our meeting regarding potential project at Arrowhead and Veterans Parkway. I would consider this to be one of the next huge infrastructure project in the community. It's one we hear about almost weekly on the City Council of the amount of traffic that's going through that intersection. There's a lot of questions regarding how do we pay for that project. It has the budget potential of $25 million. And so Director Cotter is going to come give us an update of where could those funds come from if we don't receive a federal grant to help with that project. I think for a lot of the community and the commuters out in that area, it's an important project. And so I want to encourage everybody to be paying attention to that. And the council, I know, talking to multiple councilors, it's a high priority to try to make sure we prioritize it in the city finances moving forward if we're not able to allocate federal funding to it. So tonight we will consider the mayor's 2025 budget, and just wanted to highlight a couple of things on there. First, I think at the end of the day, it strengthens our law enforcement community and continues to add law enforcement officers. We get asked all the time, and especially after some of the news recently about what's happening in our community, that we're prioritizing consistently the hiring of more law enforcement officers. And I think one thing that's important to keep in mind is that we've got an authorized number of officers, and then we've got kind of the functional number that we have. And so we're continuing to authorize more, but sometimes we don't hit that authorized number because we got officers in training, officers that are being called away for the National Guard, injury, things like that. But the authorization number is always going higher, which raises the functional number as well. And so I think that's a big piece that the mayor has recommended, continue to elevate the authorized number, and I believe the council will fully support that this evening with the budget. One of the items that's received a lot of attention in the mayor's proposed budget is funding for the purchase of land for the Riverline project and the potential of a downtown convention center. This has obviously received a lot of attention in our community. It's a large investment of $8 million to buy land to move that vision forward, and it's potentially the biggest investment that our city will make if that project were to move forward. And in light of those things, of the massiveness of this project and the huge potential public investment that's coming, Councilor Chair Sale and I are going to be bringing forward tonight a couple of items. First, we're going to be bringing forward a resolution. The resolution would establish a Riverline Steering Committee. The intent of this resolution is very simple. We want to basically say, hey, now that we're appropriating public funds for this vision to move forward, we think it's very much appropriate now that we authorize a publicly known committee to move the vision from where we're at today to the point of a public vote. We're really excited to move this vision forward, and we think the appropriate way to do that with public funds now coming to the table is saying, this is the committee that we want to authorize to move us where we are today, the vision, the idea, to getting a design, costs, financing thing in place to put before the voters so that the community can weigh in on this vision. So the resolution would establish the Riverline Steering Committee, basically say, hey, let's move forward together. The second item would be a budget supplement. The budget supplement would authorize funds immediately from the entertainment tax, which would be allocated for the purchase of that land. And the supplement's written in a way in which it says it needs the authorization of the Riverline Steering Committee in order for those funds to be expensed. Again, our goal is to create public transparency, public accountability for how we move forward on this project, and we believe this does that. So it's a little bit of a tweak of kind of where we're at, but it moves the vision forward, we think, in a really positive way, and we're really excited. I think Friends of Riverline, individuals, businesses, banks especially, have given a lot already to help us get to this juncture, and now that we're at a juncture of public funds being added in, it's time to add in now a kind of formal committee to take us to that next step. And I continue to remind everyone, the council is committed to working towards a place where we can have a public vote on this matter so that the community can say, yeah, let's move forward with this vision or let's go in a different direction. We think this committee can move us to that place of a public vote. So we're excited to bring that forward tonight, and hope our fellow councilors will consider supporting that to continue to move the vision forward. So that's all that I have. Councilors, anything else? We'll open it up for questions for Councilor. We got Councilor Basie, Councilor Sale, or myself. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, question on the Riverline committee that you spoke of. Do you have any requirements for the makeup of that committee, or how are you making sure that different stakeholders are being heard? Specifically, I'm thinking about like nonprofits and neighbors in the Whittier area.
Great question. The requirements of the committee is going to be, we're going to have the mayor and the council leadership appoint the committee together for 8 members. So we're trying to take a real collaborative approach and basically sit down together. And I think Councilor Chair put it best saying we need to ask the question, who needs to be on the committee? And we'll have an opportunity for the council to weigh in on that and the mayor to weigh in on that as well. And we'll have 8 members.
And is part of the goal of allocating the funds right away? I mean, do you anticipate this would expedite the process? I know there's in the purchase agreement, that's sort of like 3 years to break ground timeline that was discussed last week or a couple weeks ago, whenever that was. Is this in an effort to say, like, let's get the public feedback going immediately on this, or?
This is getting into some government nerdiness. It's not necessarily expediting things. By us doing a budget supplement, which is an ordinance, allows us to put in ordinance that we want this committee to have authorization and authority power. So it's a little bit of an adjustment from our perspective that brings that public accountability and public transparency to move forward. Any other questions?
I know this wasn't on your speaking points today, but I am curious, one thing that was talked about in the budget process was the aquatics bond. That has been put on pause till after the election. What have the conversations been like among councilors in this interim? Are you guys getting more information or kind of drilling down? What is that looking like kind of behind the scenes?
Thank you. The aquatics bond for the pools has been long overdue, and right now there's negotiations between the city council and the administration on the value of the bond and also the requirements that are going to be put on the bond. I've been dealing with this for a long time, and the way the cost escalates on this is a concern to the city council overall. So those discussions on what it's going to be, the intent, I believe, is to vote on it sometime coming this fall or early winter. It depends on when the snow comes, so you can define fall or early winter. But that's the intent. So we think it will be coming forward fairly soon for us to take a crack at it. The price of the bond is yet to be determined.
What kind of changes can people expect? Just based on the conversations you're having, is it going to be dramatically different than what's been put forward to the public?
No, it won't be dramatically different. It'll still be a bond it'll be a bond to fund the construction of the Frank Olson and the Keene Park and to do the repairs to the Sanford that's what the council anticipates coming forward. So it's not substantially different. It's maybe a little inside City Hall baseball, but that's what we think will come forward. That's what I think we can support going forward. And there's a lot of moving factors because when you go to the bond market, you don't know what you're going to pay for the debt service and things like that. So there's some inside nerdiness that will happen, but we don't expect a substantial change.
I think I would add to that. This aquatics bond conversation has been happening for a long time prior to me taking office and my other colleagues. And part of that conversation that I've personally had with some of the directors is taking into account the feedback from the previous sitting council, as well as the various working groups that we've had. A lot of the recent proposals that we've seen, there aren't a lot of changes, a lot of that feedback taken into account. And so that's one of the asks that I've put out there is as we continue to look at some of the government nerdiness, if you will, and some of those details, that we would also leverage that time in between to be able to reevaluate some of those finer details that we have discussed in feedback. Other questions?
I don't know if you have noticed the jaunt e-bikes that have been placed downtown. There's one sitting outside at City Hall. They're showing up at every bike rack in downtown. Is that cool?
Great question. I know that multiple community members have been reaching out regarding the new bike service that's in town, and multiple councilors have inquired with the city attorney's office regarding what ordinances are on the books, what's not on the books, and right now I know there's multiple councilors that are in conversation with the city attorney's office. I think, for me personally, all I can say is for me personally, I think we got to get clarity on where bikes can be left. For example, we can't be blocking the public right away in different sidewalk places. So there seems to be some confusion, and we have to get clarity out to the public. We've heard over the weekend from multiple people in the public of their frustration.
It was my understanding that this didn't need to come before council. It didn't go before Active Transportation Board. The department seems to think that it doesn't require council approval. What are your thoughts on that?
Correct. From our understanding currently at the moment, that there was not a ordinance change needed for this type of operation to exist in the community. But now we're getting some question regarding how it's operating. Does that fit into the existing ordinances of the community? I have no doubt that the business itself doesn't need to come before city council. Like, we don't want the city council approving or disapproving every business that comes into Sioux Falls. We want to set up ordinances that lay the ground rules for businesses to operate. And I think the question is, do we have the ground rules in place for this type of business to operate in a manner that's healthy for the whole public? I think right now, over the next week, we got to figure out and determine that before people get more frustrated, because it's going to hurt if we don't do this right, it hurts future opportunities as well, because people get frustrated of where bikes are being left, and so we got to find a pathway forward.
Well, and my other question is, can 5 more come in? Like, there's no cap on it. If you don't have any approval over the business, as many can come in as want. What about scooters? We turned down scooters once, right?
Thank you. Just to add on to what Councilor McCarr says, some of this has been, the questions have gone to the city attorney. What can we do? What is required of us? My understanding, I believe, that the bikes that have come to town are not required to get city council approval. I will say the discussions are going on with the city attorney's office, the downtown people, and also the police department, and Councilor Sigety and Spelleberg are leading that charge for the council. So they're actively holding meetings to try and determine the whole downtown traffic issues, whether it be hay rides, whether it be rickshaws, whether it be anything like that. So they're working as we speak to have those meetings to get clarity on what can and cannot happen in downtown Sioux Falls.
Would it have been prudent for the department to bring this forward? It seems like they didn't think they had to, so they didn't, but you could see this coming. Like, was a mistake made here?
I'm not going to comment on whether a mistake, I think the question is this: is there a business operating that's in opposition to existing ordinances that are on the books? And we got to get clarity of, if bikes are being left in a public right-of-way location and it's against existing ordinances, we need to enforce our ordinances, and therefore, whether that be citation for that business or whatever. But at this juncture, I don't think there's anything inappropriate in the sense of the department not bringing the council something about a business being allowed in our community. The question is the department enforcing the existing ordinances on the books? And if there needs to be a new ordinance put on the books, because now we have a new business model that exists, that's our responsibility as councilors to do that research and try to put a new ordinance on the books that allows or doesn't allow for a certain business model. But, and there's a lot for me even to learn on this at this juncture.
And I guess to put a finer point on it, you have a business that's operating on the public right of way. If you pass an ordinance now, you're taking away their business, their investment is gone. I saw this coming and I wrote about it. How come nobody else saw this coming in city government, where now you've created a problem that you're going to say no to the next business, but you said yes to this one? Is this? Sure.
That's something the city attorney advises us on.
Okay, but we are now, I understand that, but we've come to a spot now where you're in a quandary. Who's responsible for the quandary?
Well, those are great questions on this subject. And actually, I will tell you, we do look for the city attorney and the department heads to give us guidance on, is an ordinance being enforced? Is it not being enforced? Is it in place? Is there one that is needed? I will tell you, I don't know the ordinances by heart, and I don't think any of the councils really have that deep understanding to really. So we have asked, is there something that we need to be doing at this point? Is there something that is not being enforced? Is there something that needs to be enforced? So those questions have been asked to the city department heads and the city attorney. Where are we with this? Because it's such a recent event that has happened. Your question is, could we have seen this coming? I just don't have a crystal ball enough to see everything that's coming down the pipe. This has been rumored for a long time that we were going to have issues, get something like that. And you've been around when there was a councilor that tried to push the scooter ordinance, and that blew up in his face because not enough background was done at that. So that's kind of where we're at. We're trying to get the feedback from the department heads and some guidance on what we should do or what we should just stay out of as council members. If there's ordinances that need to be put in place, we would certainly do that to try and address the situation. If there's ordinances not being enforced, then that's an issue that we'll have to take up with them at that point. That's the best I got for you. Anything else? Last call. Okay, thank you very much for coming. Look forward to seeing you all at the meeting tonight with 4 o'clock. Is the informational. 3 o'clock. Let me give you a little, here's how this is going to happen. The city council is going to start our informational. We're going to go into executive session to talk about things that are appropriate for executive session, and then we're going to reconvene the regular meeting at 4 o'clock.
You don't reconvene, right? You have a meeting at 3. When you gavel that meeting in, you will then go into executive session, right?
Right.
Do you expect that executive session is going to last an hour? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
But it's not 2 different meetings.
No.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.